Well, everyone, it's finally here, the end of 2020. Now, for most of you that are alive today, know that this has been a pretty rough year, and this will be my final video in that year, of course. But yeah, just 50 minutes away. It's been pretty rough for everyone, regardless of who you are and what situation you've been through most of your life. This year, you could just throw out about everything that went good because even if there was good, there was bad too. I mean, one thing I can tell you guys was good for sure. This was actually one of my best years on YouTube since I first started, because the adpocalypse was something going on for a long time on here. Well, not really. I mean, in comparison to the entire website's existence, not really that long. But, it did last about 3 years. I don't know if people technically consider it to be over, but hey, the restrictions, they're not as bad as they were, say, in 2017. Like today, I think COPPA really kind of saved YouTube because I was about to leave. Like, I wasn't even going to continue to make videos on this platform anymore. But what convinced me to stay was the fact that COPPA was put into place, so I can't just be, demonetized or whatever. I'm not even really making ad revenue right now, but I think it was just good for everyone, really, the fact that COPPA came in place. At first, it looked like it was going to be really bad and it was going to be awful. But COPPA didn't turn out to be that bad for everyone. So, yeah, that was something good that happened in 2020. Honestly, if it weren't for COPPA and what happened in this year on YouTube, I probably would not even still be making videos. But yeah, that's a good reason for it. I now want to move on to why everyone hates 2020 now. And that's generally because about every month there's something bad that happens. Maybe not several events, but just at least one majorly bad event that's happened. I mean, it's been crazy. This year, my parents have went through a divorce. We had the coronavirus. I mean, at the beginning of the year, Kobe Bryant died, which is one of... I don't even care if you like basketball or not. I think everyone knew who he was because, he's an influential figure in just sports in general and in pop culture. So to see him and his daughter die, that was a tragedy. And that was one of the first really bad things that happened in 2020. And then the next was probably in February when there were the Australian wildfires and they were killing animals in Australia. So it wasn't really hurt, And especially me, since I've been I've been consuming a vegan diet, living a vegan lifestyle, That's something that really sucks to see, because you never think that animals should suffer because of something that humans have done to cause that. Because let's face it, global warming is a problem in not just this country, the United States, but the entire world, because of some very bad, because we don't take any precautions, and it's really bad for our environment. We do a lot of bad things, like, breathing is one thing we can't control because humans naturally emit carbon. We emit CO2 naturally. And the thing about that is plants usually take in CO2, so we simultaneously help plants live, and they can't live if we're cutting them down all the time. So when we cut down trees, it kind of hurts, and when there's wildfires, it hurts. It hurts the environment because we need plants to take in the CO2 that we breathe out. And that's something that really, with the fact that that by 2050, I think it is, probably about 83% of forests won't even be here anymore. Or at least rainforests, I've heard, but it may even be all forests that there's a big majority taken out of. But all I can tell you guys is 2020 has not taken a very big leap towards helping us reach our goal of trying to reduce carbon emission and global warming. 2020 has not gotten us any closer to that, but I'm glad. But one thing I think 2020 has done in terms of that, though, is it's it's giving people more of a reason to be motivated and have positivity towards the future, because after this year, people are not going to allow the same things that have went wrong for probably the last time, Like, I don't know if this will be the last time, but people, I think, will really learn a lesson from this year and what they should do in the future, because I think that's really going to be important towards fixing global warming. And the bad thing is, that's not even, the first two things I just named there isn't even the worst of 2020. Now we start, really, March is where we start with the worst. We now, the first person to contract coronavirus in, believably, Wuhan, China. And by the way, I can't even tell you where it is or who first contracted COVID, because it's so politically skewed by our government that we don't know who did what and how it's been caused. But at least from what I believe, it's somewhere on the other side of the earth where it's been contracted, and then it spread like pretty much. I was just talking about wildfires in Australia. Then COVID spread it like a wildfire and got everyone sick. And now millions of people have died over this disease. Like, it's pretty much as bad as, say, events from World War II. Like, this year, we've probably seen more deaths than maybe even World War II. So this might have been the most deaths we've seen in this world in probably over 100 years, because that's the last time we had a pandemic that killed a ton of people. But I'd have to go do my research again. I know COVID has at least killed several million people. I know that. I think it's like 3. But I remember, like, I forget how many people in the world died. I know, like, several million died in the U.S. So I know at least in the U.S., more people have died to COVID than they did in World War II. I mean, there were a bunch of soldiers that died. I think there were like over 100,000 that died or something, or 600,000. It was a big number, let's just say that. Compared to all wars ever, World War II probably killed the most Americans out of any war that we participated in. So, I really only expect COVID to get worse next year, but let me tell you, 2020 is where it all started, and that's when I think it will be the worst. I think from here, since we're getting a change in leadership in our country, I think that there's a chance that maybe we could see that change with COVID. We'll just see, because I think a lot of people end up putting in a lot of trust in one person, and they disappoint every time. So that's the thing about elections and politics, and that you can't just believe everything one person says, because they could be wrong just as well as the other candidate does. So, you just got to go by what makes sense, and you've got to tell and believe the truth, because if you don't, it's going to hurt not only yourself but everyone else around you. Because let me tell you, 2020 is a year where there's been a lot of stupidity in ways, and I don't mean to say that to offend anyone, but I just mean to say that in the most blunt and serious way possible. People have been panicking and being nonsensical over the silliest things, like, political beliefs, COVID. And I mean, COVID is serious. It should be taken seriously regardless of who you are, because I don't know who you are thinking the coronavirus is fake. I don't know how you skew that, because I've actually known people that have contracted COVID in my family, and if you don't by this point, then you've probably done a very good job keeping yourself away, or you've just gotten very lucky. That's one of two things has happened if you have not contracted it yourself or known someone who's contracted it. That's how wildfire-esque this COVID spread is, like, this thing started spreading really majorly in March. Like, it only took about 9-10 months to get all around the world and kill millions of people. So who knows what it could do in the next few years. Maybe this virus is going to continue to be a problem, and it's going to affect a lot of people in a negative way continuing. And I don't think it will just disappear in 2021. I think we're still going to be fighting it into it. With the COVID vaccines supposedly going to be distributed massively by February or March. Let's hope that happens. I'm not going to tell you whether or not you should or shouldn't take the vaccine, as I'm a person of religion, and so I believe that For all I know, they could be putting microchips in these vaccines, and I can't prove that, and I'm not going to say that, and I'm not going to even pander and make you believe that, because I think that it really should solely be based on what you think is best for your health. Now, some people will probably go in the comments and argue with me and say that, regardless of who you think you are, you should get the vaccine. Some people are generally healthy and can survive COVID, so they may not even need to worry about it. But I do think people susceptible, like such as people in an older age demographic, I think they will need this vaccine, and I think they should be given the vaccine first. But the way it's probably going to work, because of how our country is, it's going to be political figures such as our president and Congress and all that people. They're probably going to be the first to get the vaccine. And I don't have a complete problem with that, because, we do need to have our people in office healthy. But I think the people who are susceptible to it matter just as much. So that's just my personal belief. I'm not going to say anything or force an opinion on anybody. You are free to believe what you want about COVID and politics and everything that's been happening. But, it's just been nuts. It's insane. COVID is real and should be taken seriously, but I think some Americans have just went nuts over it, such as when it first started, we were buying out soap and toilet paper at the stores. That's how insane it was. We literally were going insane, where we had to rob the entire store of it clean. So I think it is good to keep your hygiene up, but I don't think we needed to panic, and I think that's the problem with COVID, because people have been panicking over the virus, and I don't think they need to. We need to stay calm and vigilant in a time of crisis. I'm sure any American political figure will tell you that, whether or not they've lied to you or not. If a president is good or bad, they really should have never been in office if they couldn't tell you what I just said. So that's what I'm going to say about COVID. Like I said, I hope for it to change in 2021. I think we're going to see a turn in the virus. I think we're going to, like Donald Trump has said many times within this year, we're turning the corner. And really, I think we will in 2021. Now, will it happen immediately? Like I said, I think it's going to take several months at least. And it may even be the entire year of 2021 as well that we're dealing with this. But I think we will at least deal with it for that long, and I think we're still going to have to follow safety precautions. But I think with the vaccine, we could see a lot of change in the way that we've kind of been living, as in terms of social distancing and quarantining and all that. So now I'm going to move on to something else that's really been an issue in 2020 that's, really set this year apart from others, and that is politics. Obviously, I know that in the past there's been political distress before. People have not agreed on politics and religion, for that matter, either. Those are two things that people tend to never talk about, because it always seems to end in fighting, especially when two people don't have the same of those. Is that, when people don't agree, they seem to fight, and that's a problem, because when in a time of crisis, because it'd be different if it was just a normal year, like for, say, 2016, when we had people saying Clinton, Trump, whoever you wanted to vote for. But you see, it's a lot different of a story when you're dealing with a pandemic, and we've been having, like I mentioned before, wildfires happening in Australia. That wasn't really something that affected the U.S. majorly, but it kind of is a huge scientific problem, though. Not really a scientific problem, but, is a problem that kind of proves what scientists have been saying about global warming to be correct. So I think that really shows that the world kind of needs to change in a way, and where we can fix that. But at the same time, when we can't even get along and agree and get on the same page about how we should deal with a pandemic and other issues going on in our world, then we're going to have a real hard time. That's been the thing with 2020. There's been so much childishness this year from people. People have not been responsible at all, and they've just been saying this and that about the other person. I mean, just like in the past, obviously, it's not like this is a new thing that people disagree with politics. But during a time of crisis, we're trying to make it some people are trying to they're trying to skew politics to their advantage so they can get what they want, and they can basically lie about things. It's really childish, because in a year like this, we need to stay honest and we need to work together, and we haven't been doing that, and that's what's really been frustrating me, because in my opinion, we all need to get along, because it's not doing the world any favors that we just fight all the time, and we don't. I mean, I'm not saying people have to agree, but we have to agree to disagree. We have to respect other people's opinions, and we have to try and find some common ground, even if we don't agree. There is always something that in politics people tend to agree on. And one thing I think I can agree with everyone on is not only COVID is real, or I think most people, rational people, would say that, but also at the same time, I'd say Black Lives Matter, because that was also a thing that went on. Of course, I was going to mention that in this video too. That was one of the things that politically kind of got everyone all rattled up. And yeah, I can understand why people get angry over that, because that is a serious topic as well. I think it needs to be addressed with all seriousness and in a formal manner. Of course, I don't think we all need to disagree and then just start calling each other names and then saying this about that person and then that about that person. I think we just need to find common ground in an issue. Like I said, with the police, I think something does need to be done. I can't say that defunding the police will do anything for us, but I do think that trying to come up with a bill or order of some sort will hopefully resolve it, because we do need to try and solve that issue. Because although the police have done some bad things, we still need police. Because we can't just have people doing what they were doing. Also, some of the rioters, such as Antifa, just destroying statues of our American history. We can't have them doing that. And even figures that have actually helped to make the lives of colored people better, And I don't mean to judge anyone, but I'm just saying, like, especially Abraham Lincoln, he really helped change the lives of black people. He helped end slavery, and he set a bill into place for that to happen. And people could still be slaves today if it weren't for Abraham Lincoln. But thanks to him, we now don't have to worry about people being owned by other people who are cruel and will just abuse you. And so I understand that people are stressed out, and they're mad that their particular race is being mistreated. And I do have to agree that they were being mistreated, especially in the George Floyd case, where Derek Chauvin was putting his knee on George Floyd's neck. No, that was not acceptable at all, to the highest extent. Because especially as human beings, we have to be better than that. We have to look at people for who they are, not the color of their skin or the way their stereotype is to be perceived. We just need to respect every person as an individual, regardless of their opinion, their looks, their race, etc. All that different stuff. We need to respect people. And even if we disagree, we need to agree to disagree and find common ground with those people that we disagree with. Because even this year I've learned that, because there have been people I've disagreed with, but I've kind of taken information from those same people and used it in my life. So I think that's what 2020 is. Even though 2020 overall has not been a good year for the most part, obviously with COVID and political and racial distress, I don't even know if distress is the right word, but it's something to describe, people being upset about it, obviously, and they have every right to be. I don't disagree. Because this year, if anything, it really was a year for all of that to happen because everyone in some way was just unlucky and affected you in a bad way. Because like I said, my parents got divorced and they've been fighting too, so I've had to deal with that this year as well. So even though, yeah, there were ways that kind of affected the entire world as a whole, our entire country and the U.S. as a whole, but even within our own households as a whole, because there's been a lot of divorces, not just in my family, but in a lot of families in general this year. So it doesn't matter who you are. 2020 has affected you in some way negatively, but you know, the good thing about 2020 is it was a learning experience for the future. As you know, with COVID, now our lives are probably going to be different, and I assume there's some things we'll never go back to. I assume most stuff we will, but I've been, when the pandemic first started, I heard people talking on the news about how we may never do handshakes again, and that's a possibility because now we do the elbow bump and stuff, so I like that too. It's just, as you know, formal in my opinion, and it's safer too because nobody ever touches their elbows, so it kind of is smart, and it respects people who don't want to get COVID. So I can completely agree if people in the future don't want to do handshakes. I can understand that. I probably will, but it will just depend on the type of person, because I feel like some people will adapt new ways to try and stay healthier after this. I think it's just like the flu pandemic, and that's when the flu became common, you know. It was just a little over 100 years ago that we became accustomed to getting the flu almost on an annual basis, or for some people. Some people like me only get it every few years. Other people get it every year, and some people have it almost all the time. So depending on who you are, it's just a common disease that we now are accustomed to seeing people have and get sick from. I mean, obviously it's more deadly than COVID, but that still doesn't mean COVID can't kill people, and it has. So that's just something we need to be vigilant about as diseases, and then coming up with new ways to potentially limit the spread of these in the future. And I think obviously with all the political unrest, okay, that was the word I was looking for this entire video. With all the political unrest we've had this year, I honestly think that our country will only become more and more separated. But I feel that in a way we won't be, because we've all went through similar things this year. I think it's the people who really don't. I think it's the people who just want to look for bad and negativity that are going to get it, you know. I think people who want to see positivity in other people and want to see positivity in the future, they're going to look for it this year, or this upcoming 2021 year. I said this year, we're still in 2020 technically, but, you know, not very much time, so. But yeah, this upcoming year, we're going to see changes in a lot of things. Let's be quite honest. There will be some good, some bad, but like we have in the year 2020, we're going to adapt to it because that's kind of how the world is, you know. Even though at the end of the day, we don't always agree, we are all human beings, and that's something that we have in common. So that, I think, will wrap it up for this video and this perspective of 2020. I was kind of just giving you guys, I mean, I didn't really say anything about my perspective. I told you guys about something that's happened in my life this year, but I didn't really talk about how I've perceived. Well, I did actually. Okay, I've lied to you guys. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lie to you, but yeah, I technically have told my perspective because, you know, there are things that I can't deny. I was talking about political stuff and COVID and all that, you know. Some of it's opinion based, but some of it is fact based as well, so that's why I was kind of thinking it wasn't, but it is my perspective technically, because I did give my opinion on that, but I'm just going to leave it up to everyone else to decide for themselves what it really was. But I don't know who you are, or really care what you do, honestly. All I know is I hope you're doing well and you'll do well this next year, and I hope that for everyone who's had a rough year, because I think regardless of who you are, you've probably went through something pretty bad this year. Even if it wasn't related to the major events that have happened, it could have just been something personal, and we've all been through quite a bit this year. So I just want to congratulate everyone who's here and cheers to a good 2021. I hope you all have a great year next year, and I hope you guys look forward to my videos that I'll be posting in the future. Like I said, 2020, because of COPPA, pretty much is the reason that my channel is still here. So thanks to the COPPA regulations that can allow you to decide whether or not your videos are kid friendly or not kid friendly. That rule absolutely saved my YouTube channel. That's why I'm still here, because YouTube saved themselves this year. I was about to leave. I was planning on leaving either this year or early next year, but thanks to the rules put into place, I feel glad to move into 2021 and stay on YouTube, because like I said, they kind of saved themselves before a lot of people left. In 2020, even though it was a bad year for the most part, there was good that came out of it, obviously. Not only did my YouTube channel, I feel, kind of get saved by YouTube making a good decision for once, but also there's a lot we're going to learn and do differently next year so this stuff doesn't happen again. So that'll do it for this video, guys. I've probably been going on for way too long, because I swear this is like already a 2-minute outro, but that'll do it for this one, guys. Cheers to 2021, and peace.